secret sauce.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Corner Guys Boxing Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Strambox. Along with me, as always, Tim Rivera. I'm lying. Tim is not here this week. He got stuck at work. So we have a nice fill-in co-host in Boxrec Grey. He also has a podcast, and he is also an editor of Boxrec, the website. And here he is.
Yo, what's going on? Happy to be here as a guest. I've been drinking White Claws all day long. I am fired up. I heard that Dennis Hogan is going to be main eventing a Showtime card at Barclays in December. I'm feeling good, man. This is a good day, and you caught me on a good one. So I'm ready to chat about boxing.
The only reason I care about that Charlo Hogan is because I'm in that game they keep pushing on Fantasy Kings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm like 4th place overall, so that's the only reason I care about that fight. If it wasn't for that.
Yeah, well, I think it's very funny that Dennis Hogan is main eventing a card in New York. And I feel like Showtime is very much haunted by the college football ghost. And they're afraid to put anything good on in December. So, hence, Dennis Hogan, boxing superstar, getting the phone call. Can't wait.
Barn burner. Well, we do get the one card, the Crawford card in December, and has the undercard of Kami and Lopez. And that's for the December card that I think is really good because, like you said, a lot of times December is a really, really, really slow month in the sport.
It's going to be, yeah, and I'll say this. December 14th is going to be I'm not going to say anything because I don't know what's confirmed or not. I don't want to piss anybody off, but there's going to be one good weekend in December. I think it's like the 14th where there could be a lot of good action happening. So right before Christmas, but there's also going to be a lot of stinkers because I really do think people are afraid of college football for some reason and don't want to put anything up against it in December. So hence you get the Dennis Hogans of the world main eventing. But there will be one good weekend in December with like 3 cards on the same day. So just get excited.
You don't want to go against the Cheez-It Bowl. I mean, it's hard to top that.
Exactly. I mean, the Outback Steakhouse Bowl. I mean, God forbid you put up anything against, 2 6-6 teams duking it out. God forbid.
Oh, boxing. I don't understand you sometimes. But for people that are familiar with you, as I said before, you have a podcast and you also are an editor of Boxrec. So if you can kind of go into those a little bit, so let the listeners know more. I figure everyone knows about Boxrec, but perhaps what goes into the editing as far as a lot of people always question the rankings, the point system. If you can kind of go into how that works a little bit.
Okay, so first I'm going to show my podcast because it's the top of the episode and I want to make sure everybody knows. It's very important to self-promote. So I have a podcast every week, Unprofessional Boxing Podcast. Just Google that in your Google search machine, and I believe my podcast website pops up first. If you like boxing tweets, I'm on Twitter at Boxrec Grey, BoxRecGrey. I'm a volunteer at Boxrec, so a lot of what I tweet, it's my opinion, so don't yell at the owners of Boxrec. They're very kind and nice people, but I just do my own thing. I help them out. I am not paid at all. I do this when I have free time for my job that does pay me. So, but I've been doing it a really long time. I love Boxrec. It's the source of truth, I guess you could say. And I work to make sure that all the records in at least in like America, USA, Puerto Rico, are accurate. So usually every week we get reports from the commissions around the United States and like I said, the territories. And it's my job to just review them, essentially, make sure all the data is accurate. A lot of times I'll catch errors that I know about because I watch a lot of boxing on TV. I read the newspapers. I like to get multiple sources because, hey, sometimes these government-appointed officials, they might make a mistake or two. So I go back to them and I go, hey, there's something in your report that might be a little bit off. Wrong guy won, or this person didn't win by a knockout. And we get that ironed out. So I always try to make sure data always accurate, at least in USA and Puerto Rico on our website. So there's no questions asked. And the fact of the matter is, if you follow me on Twitter, there aren't exactly people hitting me up questioning results that happen in America, and I'm proud of that because I try and do my job as a volunteer and just make sure that data is correct and people aren't the wrong thing. I don't want the wrong winners up there. That's like my worst nightmare because people they make their living off this shit, and I don't want somebody to not get a fight and an opportunity because a fight's missing or it's up, the wrong data's up there. That's not good. I want to make sure that everything is truthful and accurate, no matter how bad the fights are. I mean, you see a lot of terrible fights in Tijuana. And the reality is, it's like, I'm not a big fan of mismatches, but if they do happen and they happen in front of a crowd and they are legitimate, put it up there that the 1-0 guy beat the 3-40 guy. Just put it up there. It did happen. It was an official fight. So I'm all about that. And to answer your question now about the rating system, I think people need to keep in mind that it's based on basically an algorithm, a math equation, and that's constantly being tweaked. We have a system that could predict that it's a predictive model basically, and who's ranked above who is based on what the machine and the equation thinks the fighter above could beat all the fighters below based on all the data that's in there, and that's literally millions of fights worth of data. So again, that's a machine pumping out what it thinks is correct, and there's a lot of lost nuances there when you leave it up to a math equation to pump out boxing ratings. It's not going to be perfect. So I wouldn't ever use the ratings as a Bible. I think they're more of a guideline, and they give you an idea of who's number one and who's number two. Can sometimes we assign points, and there's like a point system. And go to the Boxrec message board if you really want to dive into the minutia. I'm not going to do it here because I didn't create the rating system, and I'm not the guy in Germany that like tweaks it all the time. I'm not the mathematician, but there's a lot of it is his choices and his reasoning behind why a certain fighter gets more points for a split decision over a majority decision, or a knockout means this much. And a lot of it is some of that's up to debate. I don't always agree with his equation, but I think for the most part, it's a good measuring stick to see where a fighter, if they're ranked in the top 10, the top 25, the top 100, it's at least a good measuring stick. I don't like hearing that fighters get bonuses in their contracts based on their Boxrec rating. That's bad. And if you're a boxer listening to this, please don't agree to that. That's a terrible idea. I don't like hearing that at all. I just feel like the system is just there to at least give you an idea of where a fighter is rated, but please, people, just use your own opinions and don't listen to the sanctioning bodies, and don't use our ratings as a Bible either. Make your own choices. Be smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall the ratings, like you said, I think they're a really good guideline. I wouldn't say, for example, I don't think Ruiz is the number one heavyweight. I believe Munguia is the number one at 154.
Yeah.
But also those interpretation, like maybe somebody could think Ruiz just because he beat Joshua, who most people had number one. The Munguia, I really can't,
I'll say why that is, if that's okay. I don't mean to butt in, but I think the system definitely rewards activity, and it's basically like a piranha fish taking small bites, and that's like, if you look at Munguia's run from 2018 to 2019, he's fought more than probably any other title holder, and he's beaten enough mid-level guys and he gets a little bit of points every single time, and that he's able to, just like I said, he takes those small bites and it adds up to his overall point total, and that's able to boost him over a slightly less active Lara and Julian Williams. I mean, is that right? I don't think so. I think the best fighter at 154 is Julian Williams, in my opinion, and he's rated number 3. So, but again, that's just what happens is if you fight more and more and you beat guys at a certain level, you get points. You'll get rewarded. So it's not a perfect system, but I just want to explain that's kind of why Jamie Mongoya, I call him that because that's what the Australian media refer to him as. That's why he's ranked number 1.
All right. It makes sense. Like you said, I guess with Munguia, they're given credit for 4 wins over average guys compared to like one major win of Williams versus Hurd. So I kind of really understand the way you broke it down a little bit more, whereas, activity is unfortunately rewarded more than
Yep.
one or two major fights. So it makes sense in that idea. So
Yeah.
at least people know. What people also should know is this past weekend, Peter Quillin and Alfredo Angulo had a fight underwater that went 10 rounds with Angulo winning a split decision. I was surprised that Kid Chocolate was more shot than Angulo. It seemed after the first 3 rounds, I think the first time he really got hit, which was hard because Angulo, again, looked like he was fighting 20,
underwater.
20 leagues underneath the sea.
Yeah.
And the first time he got hit, Quillin had the crackhead eyes after the first hit where his eyes opened up wide.
Yep.
And it just seemed after that he had nothing really left to offer.
He looked totally screwed, and when Angulo hit him with that huge shot in round 4, that if Angulo had maybe another minute, that could have been over right there. I mean, Quillin just got stiff in the corner and just let this man who, in the first 2 rounds, looked genuinely terrifying in the ring, like terrifying as shouldn't have been in there. Angulo, I don't know what happened, if Abel Sanchez whispered a magical spell into his ear, but he went from a guy that could barely get his punches off, and really it looked rotten. Like his timing looked bad. He was slow. Everything that looks like a shot fighter, and all of a sudden Angulo, it was like new life was breathed into this human being, and all of a sudden he was able to, with his limited abilities, to just hurt Quillin when it really mattered. I think Peter Quillin's overall output, I mean, Angulo, I don't know if Angulo landed a single jab, and I'm not saying that as like hyperbole. Like, I think statistically he did not land a jab in the fight. And Quillin was hitting him with jabs constantly through the 10 rounds, but it was really the eye-catching punches, the punches that told the story. It was somehow Angulo was able to catch up with him. Like, it just says a lot about Quillin that he wasn't able to use his legs well enough to beat this man who is extremely slow, fights one style, and has zero plan B. I mean, if Angulo cannot hit you with power punches, he's gonna get picked apart for 10 rounds. I've seen much worse fighters than Quillin pick Angulo apart. So, yeah, shocking and a little bit scary that Angulo is in the ranks. Boxrec has him in the top 25 now at super middleweight. He's going to get fed. He's going to get fed for sure. There's plenty of fighters that Uncle Al can feed him to. And I'll say this about Al Heyman, too. He had a lot of reasons he could have cut Angulo and released him. But he's given him a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances. And Angulo, I thought he did deserve to win the fight, 96-94. So credit to Heyman, I guess, for giving this guy a chance to support his family. But I am scared to see him fight somebody with real talent.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he gets fed to Plant, which isn't the worst outcome, but Plant, isn't a power puncher. Where if he got fed to like Benavidez, then it's like. But I think he'll get fed to Plant or Chavez Jr.
Yeah, yep. He's a mandatory. He's like a voluntary title defense written all over him, because he's gonna get rated by some of these organizations in their top 15, and now because he beat Quillin. So if anybody's looking for a voluntary, PBC is gonna be like absolutely, because it's gonna be in house. It's gonna be easy to make. So you're right. I think Angulo is going to get himself a world title shot in 2020. How scary is that?
Yeah, realistically, both should retire. Angulo at least once. I could see him working it for another payday, but I don't know where Kid Chocolate goes from here. He was a sizable favorite. I think he was around negative, I want to say 800 to 1,000 range, and to lose to Angulo.
Wow, that's so wide. Jeez. But yeah, no, I was on board with that too. I didn't think Angulo had any opportunity to win this fight. I thought he was going to get stopped, in fact, in the late rounds. And like I said, I can't really make sense of this fight still. I struggle to.
It was an odd card, because that was odd. Another odd thing was on your last show, for anyone that wants to listen to it, we go through nostalgia, history lane, and also talk about this fight card pre-fight. I told people to look out for Chris Colbert. I said one of the issues he had was that some people may not think he's an exciting fighter because he's not a power puncher. He'll systematically break you down. And maybe Colbert was listening and said, fuck this guy, because he went in there and stopped Beltran viciously in the first round.
Yeah, that was very unexpected. I was prepared to set my brain into autopilot and watch him pick the much slower opponent apart for 10 rounds. Like, you could tell right away Colbert had more skills and just younger, fresher, faster. And then, man, he landed the one-hitter quitter right near the end of the round. Really impressive. And, I mean, that is what he needed. This will get him back on TV, I think, fairly quickly. Maybe he's on an actual Fox undercard next time around, not an FS1 card. Who knows? But that's exactly what Chris Colbert needed to get people talking about him, because I think he's really good, and I don't know, just not enough people were talking about him. So hopefully this gets people to remember who he is and back on the radar.
Yeah, definitely, like you said, right after I put on Twitter that was exactly what you need, a national TV knockout, where it looks a little deceiving because he's not that much of a power puncher that was shown Saturday, but fans are going to tune in because they're going to see the prime time entrance was flashy, and then that destructive knockout. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to tune into the next fight. And I mean, he may lose a few views if he goes back to, the systematic breakdown because people want knockouts, but it'll definitely, like you said, it'll get him on a card relatively soon where he's going to be higher up on the card listing instead of being the opening fight. Maybe you can co-main on a smaller card or be an undercard of a larger card of maybe, like, let's take, I don't know, Wilder and Ortiz, for example, in November. Maybe he gets tossed on that. So it'd be interesting to see where he goes next. Also in the undercard, you had two other prospects with some pretty big knockouts. Ramos had the knockout over Edwards. I think it was the third round. And the Spanish kid, Esquivel, I can't say his last name, he got I think it was a second round knockout. So and Russell's brother, Gary Russell, was on there. I think he had a first round knockout. So a lot of talented young and up and coming fighters had made quick work.
Yeah, they're, like I said on my show, like PBC, they always have these 15 fight cards, and there's a lot of prospects that people don't even really know about or talk about because they haven't been on TV yet. Like, Al signs a lot of guys, and he's got to weed them out pretty quickly, see who's going to be, he's got to let the cream rise to the top. So, I mean, it's crazy. Like, Gary Russell Jr.'s brother, Gary Antoine, was on this card. I think he was the first fight on this 15-fight card. So, I mean, that tells you a lot of prospects, a lot of people. They're just waiting they're building up records and waiting for the right time. But I mean, Al, what's good is, I mean, a lot of these guys that Al has, they're not going to be elite fighters forever, and their careers will go down, whatever. But you always need to replenish that with new names, new prospects, new fighters to get you excited. And instead of Al having to really ever go out and sign guys and get desperate, like the field will always be replanted. He's got plenty of guys coming through, and I'm sure some of those guys you mentioned are going to be getting more opportunities in 2020.
Yeah, it'd be definitely interesting. Like you said, if you look on Boxrec, you can see how many fighters are actually on this card. Now, I'm unfamiliar with a lot of guys, but you see on the left side of the screen, which is usually the favorite side on Boxrec, the A side, you see a lot of undefeated guys. 5-0 Rodriguez, 7-0 Balderas, 15-0 Ochoa, 3-0 of overseas foreign. Oh, yeah. So there's one, like, probably in this whole fight card, over 10 guys that were undefeated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Al doesn't, and I like about Al is he doesn't just target guys. He doesn't just sign guys from the West Coast. He doesn't just sign guys from the East Coast. He's bringing over guys overseas. He's giving he's giving a lot of people shots. So I really like that about him. I think he just wants to see, throws paint at the wall and sees what sticks. So credit to him. And like we'll talk about on this pay-per-view card this weekend, I believe it's another 15 fight show. 15 fights, and there's plenty of undefeated prospects on that too.
Yeah, the undercard of that is Joey Spencer. I'm not overly high on as some other people are, but he's, I know, on that undercard. And Robert Guerrero, another guy who should really think about calling it quits. He's on the undercard. And like you said, there's another, I think, last time there was 5 or 6 guys that were undefeated.
Yeah, I'll say this little tidbit about Joey Spencer's opponent. He's fighting a guy named Travis Gambardella from Revere, Massachusetts. Not too far from where I live, actually. He fought last October on the walkout bout of one of the first Matchup USA cards, and he won. And he might give Joey Spencer a bit of a tough fight. I say he's 5-0-2, and this isn't a guy that just trains in Massachusetts. He's done. He's had a fight out in California before. I think he even trains out there half the time. So that guy could give Joey Spencer some problems. Just a little tidbit there.
All right, yeah, because I thought Spencer's last fight against Akeem Black, I didn't think Spencer lost a look to. I thought he won, but I didn't think he looked in that fight. I thought he lost at least 2 of the rounds, and maybe if you really want to try to push it, you could have a 3-3 draw. Mm-hmm. But I definitely thought he lost 2 rounds, and
this guy's better than Akeem Black. So and I think it's only 4 rounds. So a lot could go wrong there. So I don't know if I think that's going to be on the free portion on Fox or whatever before the pay-per-view. So I'm actually kind of interested in that one. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a good watch. It just seems Spencer's trying to get pushed down our throats, and I don't have anything against him. I don't think he's terrible. I just don't think he's as good as the hype machine behind him is making him out to be.
Yeah, they definitely have their favorites at PBC for sure. And I don't really understand why all of Joey Spencer's fights have been on TV, where he has other prospects who I think are just as good. So that don't make TV. Very strange.
It is. But going to the main pay-per-view card, me and Tim, last show we had an argument of the card, the pay-per-view portion. Mm-hmm. I thought, granted, a lot of people stream, and nothing really should be a pay-per-view these days anymore, except for major fights. If you had Pacquiao Spence or Spence Crawford, I could see. But I think as far as pay-per-view goes, I don't think this card's that bad. I think all 4 fights are interesting enough where you could, make it a pay-per-view.
Yeah, let's walk through it. I agree. I think all 4 fights actually interest me to some degree. Let's start from the bottom here. We got Josecito Lopez against John Molina Jr. Classic trash fight. These 2 guys have been hitting the head so much over their careers. I don't really see much longevity for either guy. But you know what? They always fight their ass off. Josecito Lopez did look pretty damn good against Keith Thurman in a fight that he was expected to get wiped out in. John Molina Jr., how many times have we seen this guy behind on the cards end up pulling it out somehow? You know that they're going to beat the shit out of each other for 10 rounds. It's going to be great. I love that as an opener. Fire it up. Then you got Mario Barrios versus Batir Akhmadov. This one fascinates me because, who gives a shit about the stupid WBA title associated with it? It doesn't matter. You have a guy who's 24-0, Barrios, who's been on these PBC shows since, back when they had PBC on ESPN. He was, they were pushing this guy, and I think his career, it's kind of peak. He's kind of flatlined a bit, and it's funny because I remember watching him fight in an IBF eliminator at 130 pounds back in the day, and now he's at 140, so obviously must not have been able to make that weight. And he's up against Akhmadov, 7-0. But this guy is a deep amateur boxing career. He's one of these Uzbekistani guys that just they've come over and they're fighting out of California now. They all fight in the same gym and they get moved very quickly. I watched Akhmadov knock out Ismael Barroso last year, and Barroso is no joke. And that was Akhmadov's 5th pro fight. He got knocked down, but he got off the canvas to knock out Barroso. He looked like a guy that had 25 pro fights. So it's 7-0. This is, it's very ambitious. Barrios is no joke either, but it's 2 prospects that are willing to take a gamble by fighting each other, and they'll get a dumb WBA trinket at the end of the day. But it's gonna boost the winner up big time, and I love seeing these guys from Uzbekistan taking big risks early in their career, and they're all managed by the same guy basically. There's a lot of risk taking going on, but these guys have 200 amateur fights. I kind of get it, why not go for it? So 2 great fights there, and then I'll just talk a little bit about Durrell and Benavidez. I don't try and root against fighters very much at all, but the Durrells do make it very difficult. they just annoy me. And I thought that David Benavidez got his title stripped from him from the dumbest reasons, like cocaine. Give me a break. I've seen boxers do terrible things outside of the ring, and they're still able to make a living just fine. They still get ranked by the organizations. You're telling me David Benavidez is going to get stripped for putting a little China white up his nose in an out of competition drug test? Give me a break. Terrible, stupid, should never have been stripped. Andre Jarrell shouldn't be the WBC middleweight title. He's, this guy, 2 of his last 3 fights, he's gotten lucky technical decision wins. Avni Yildirim got screwed, and no way is a guy who's had problems with Avni Yildirim and Dennis Mama's boy Duglin is gonna be a young, hungry, ready to get his title back David Benavidez. I'm excited to see David Benavidez stop this guy. I'm gonna say 8 rounds. Good undercard. What do you think, man?
Well, like you said with the Lopez Molina, I think they may not be the best guys, but just the style of that fight is what average fans, people that are unfamiliar with boxing want to see, or even most people that like boxing. You just want to see 2 guys that are rock'em sock'em robots sitting in the middle of the ring trying to chuck bombs at each other.
Hell yeah.
And that's pretty much what it's going to be. Lopez right now is about -400 favorite. So Molina's about -300 to maybe plus 300 to plus 320 range, which I think seems about right because I think Lopez has a little more tread on the tires and he's more physically adapt to that weight than Molina. So I think they're right on target as far as the betting line. I think Lopez should win it being fresher. But as you said, we've seen Molina pull a few fights out the fire. So even if he's down in a fight, things are looking bleak. He's done it before where one punch, obviously, as everyone says in boxing, can change around a whole fight. So I think that's really what makes this fight really, really interesting is Molina, even if you see him down, let's say it's a 10-round fight, let's say it goes down a third and he's down 5 rounds to 1, he's still not out of it because we've seen him hold his power late and take guys out late. And Lopez also, he's not the strongest of chins. We've seen him bounce back good against Ortiz in that fight, but we've also seen him get stopped by Andre Berto. That's why Berto's career is still continuing because he beat Lopez. So it's going to be interesting. I say Lopez. I'm going to say he wins a UD or maybe a late stoppage is what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I think it's kind of hard to pick Molina, especially that this fight is at 147. Molina's going to be really small for the weight. Yeah, I think going with Lopez here, I think you're right. I think he has a little bit more left. I think he's hungry and he wants to get himself another title shot. And that a win here keeps him active and keeps him in discussion. So, yeah, I think I got to go with the Riverside Rocky.
Okay, we're in agreement there. The Barrios Akhmedov fight, I'll be honest, I have not yet seen Akhmedov, and you're saying, what type of podcast is this? But at least I'm honest. I've been following him. I know he fought for he fought for Turkey in the Olympics.
He did. Yes, he did.
So he did fight for Turkey. So I vaguely remember him in his Olympic days. And the name was familiar once. I think he fought the fight that you mentioned that he got knocked down in early in the fight, and then he came back and he stopped him, the Barrasso guy. So I haven't really seen much of him. So I'm going to just predict, just off what I know of Barrios and him, for them to put him in this fight at his 8th fight, they must really feel that he's ready and he can beat Barrios. Betting odd-wise also kind of corresponds with this. Barrios was a higher favorite, but now he's anywhere between -155 and -200. So pretty close odds, but I think what's your fight breakdown? Because you being familiar with him would have a better, I guess, understanding of what may happen.
Yeah, Akhmedov is a plus, I guess it'd be 150 or something like that. I think that's good value. He's a guy that he's a guy that definitely breaks you down over time. I believe he knocked Barrio out with a body shot. So he's definitely a guy that will pressure you and try and break you down as the fight goes on. So don't expect. I'd be really shocked to see either guy get a quick, a stoppage in under 5 rounds or something like that. I think this is going to be a bit of a drag-out fight, though. You look at Barrios' record, and I think he's knocked out his last 8 or 9 opponents. But then you have to look at that list of opponents, and I'm telling you, even if a lot of those guys have winning records, I still think Akhmedov is a higher class than that even after 7 pro fights. So I think Akhmadov, I don't know. I don't think he's going to stop Barrios, but I do think he's going to squeak out a 12-round win here. It's going to be a close battle. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see Akhmadov going into late rounds. He's been 9 rounds or more, 2 in the 7 fights. But again, this is a guy that hasn't touched championship rounds yet. His last 2 fights, his opponents weren't really the best. So, yeah, it's a risk, man. I think Akhmadov's going to win, but I definitely understand why Barrios is the favorite. I think he is. That's the conservative bet. You go with the guy that has been to 12 rounds. He's coming off of like 8 or 9 knockout wins in a row. Hard to bet against that, but I just want to see one of these Uzbeks, fulfill their destiny, man. I want to see it.
Yeah, because I think, like you mentioned, the last 4 rounds deep in the fight is going to be interesting. Just because Barrios has been 12 once, but I mean that was a fight he coasted in. He didn't have won every round. But aside that, he's only been 8 rounds.
Mm-hmm. True. So, and he's been blowing all these guys out. So, I mean, really, when was the last time he's fought anybody with that could give him the resistance? It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's what really makes it intriguing is going to be that rounds 9 through 12 to see how both guys react. Because a lot of people will always look at a record and say, oh, well, he's been 12 rounds 3 times, and things like that. But there's a big difference between 12 rounds and something you won 120, 108 to being 12 rounds of, a grueling fight. When you don't have incoming coming at you, it's easy to go rounds because you're only a one-way fighter. You're only offense. You don't have anything to worry about. You're not having a lot taken out of you. At least with Akhmadov, the Barrasso fight, that seemed to me, just by what I read and looking at the fight, where it was, something where he had to, still pull a fight out. Not that it was, even fight or whatever the case is. I'm not even sure what the scorecards were, but it just seemed, it was a fight where it was back and forth at least until the stoppage in the 9th round. So it showed he can carry his power late in the fight, in a fight that's, somebody's giving him something back. Whereas Barrios, just by the fights I've seen and looking at the records, a lot of these guys, like you stopped Jose Roman in the 8th round, you won every round. How much resistance are some of these guys putting forth?
Yeah, no, it's a valid question. I mean, you think about it, like, when was the last time he even lost a round? And I don't know. I just look at the names on his record, and there's no one there that go, ooh, that's a really good win. That gets me fired up. I think his last one was over this guy Juan Jose Velasco, who was coming off of the loss against Pro Grey. So, he knocked him out in 2, so that's good. But I mean, it wasn't like a win that I'm like, ooh, I think this guy's ready for a world title. So yeah, this one I think is going to be the most competitive of the 4 fights. That's my prediction.
Definitely. The betting odds suggest that as well, and it's going to be interesting because whoever wins the fight is definitely going to be a player at that weight class. Well, I believe 140. So they're definitely going to be another name in the mix, even though. I mean, the WBA Super World Progress is the actual champ, if I'm correct, of the WBA in that division. I guess he's super champ or whatever he is.
Yeah, it's dumb. Who cares? But But what I want to know is what round do you think Benavidez is going to stop Anthony Durrell?
I think your prediction of 8 is going to be pretty close. I don't mind Anthony Durrell as much as his brother. I think Anthony Durrell seems to be a good stand-up guy, whereas Andre Durrell, you had the Abraham incident and the Uztaki, how do you pronounce his name? That incident. I was never really a fan of his. But back to Anthony, as you said, he really struggled with whatever the hell, the Yildirim, I can't pronounce his name. But I remember watching that fight, and I thought that he was up Yildirim on the cards, which was like, and as you said, Dennis Douglin, another technical decision. I remember that one. I think I just edged it for Durrell, but it's Dennis Douglin. If you go back a few years, 5-6 years ago, he had the draw with Bika. Grandy came back and he beat Bika, but it's still, you had the draw with Bika. So he was impressive in the Truax fight. I remember that he stopped Truax, I think, in 1 or 2, whatever that was. that was impressive. But there hasn't really been, when you look at his whole resume, much else that's really stood out. Like, that was, Durrell at its finest.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't. There's something about Durrell that impresses me. I know this thing being harsh, but like, I just think like the guy is living off of that 1-round Caleb Truow win from like 3 years ago. I just don't see what tools this guy has that could possibly stop David Benavidez and that pressure that he's gonna be feeling all the 12 rounds of that fight. I just don't see like what he could possibly do to make David Benavidez stop in his tracks for even 1 second. I mean, when I saw him blow out Julian Love back in March, I was so happy because it's like I want to see him wipe out guys that just don't commit to their offense very much. And I just see from Durrell, he just doesn't. He's not on he's not on the gas all 12 rounds. So I just think David Benavidez is gonna beat him. Just even if he doesn't stop him, he's gonna beat him just on work rate alone. I just don't think Durrell can keep up with him.
Yeah, same here. It just seems that Durrell is, I wouldn't say gun shy, but he doesn't let his hands go as much as he should. He loads up sometimes a little bit.
Yeah.
And if Benavidez' chin holds up, which I think Durrell's only chance is, a one-punch type knockout, I mean, it's not going to outwork Benavidez. So, where's his out as far as what's his plan to win besides, the lucky lotto punch?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just see more paths to victory for Benavidez. It's as simple as that. What's the betting line looking like on that? Out of curiosity.
Benavidez did open up as a big favorite. He was negative 1,100, which shows that people are in agreement with me and you. Now he's about negative 900 to negative 800 range. So Durrell's about plus 700 to plus 600 in that idea. But it still seems kind of wide if you were going to bet because, I mean, granted, we expect Benavidez to win, but who's really going to lay down $900 to win $100? So
no.
People are going to have to, if you're going to bet, maybe if you thought by knockout, most likely 7 to 12 Benavidez, because I think Durrell will at least hang around, at least half the fight. Anything less than that would be impressive. Benavidez blew him out in a couple of rounds. I'd be shocked at that. But I would say maybe a 7 to 12 Benavidez stoppage, or if you think Benavidez can just go the distance, or Durrell can go the distance, then that would be the two betting options, because you can't really lay down almost $1,000 to win $100.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in that case, I just stay away from the betting line on this one. There's better fights with more value out there. But yeah, man. Then you got the main event. I mean, I think everybody's talking about this fight, so we could, we don't have to. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I mean, like, I don't know, Errol Spence and Porter. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's kind of interesting to see a lot of people, I think, are getting themselves talked into Porter winning this fight, and I just can't really see it. Like, I think the more I think about it, I'm like, man, Spence is 29 and probably is at maybe the peak of his career right now. Like, this could be the best Errol Spence out that we can ever see. Maybe next year too. But like, he's really probably at his athletic best, and Porter is. I just feel like a little bit on the downslide, and it's hard for me to get excited about a guy that really I don't think beat Yordenis Ugas, and I just don't see how he can beat Spence. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I mean, looking back at Porter's fights, the Thurman fight, I thought Thurman won 115, 113. Maybe if you want to have a draw, I could kind of go with that too, but that was, 3 years ago. Since then, he looked bad in the Berto fight. That was just like a mauling of a fight. He looked bad in the Granados fight, I thought. The Garcia fight, once he fought his fight where, for some reason, the last two fights, Porter thought he was Pernell Whitaker and was a boxer. You're not. You're just to get inside and mug people and brawl. Once he did that, I thought he edged Garcia. And the Ugas fight, I thought he could have went Porter by like 115, 113, could have went Ugas by 115. But still, you can make a case for Ugas winning. You can make a case for Garcia winning. Thurman, I thought, won. And the Granados and Berto fights, he didn't look too good. So when's the last time that Porter looked good and that he won? I mean, I guess the Broner fight besides the 12th round, but Malgiani, which was 6 years ago, but he was bigger and could, steamroll him. So it's really just, like you said, I think Porter's more on the downslope. Plus, I think physically, Spence is bigger. I believe he's a couple inches taller and probably about 3-4 inches in reach or so. Plus, he's a southpaw. I just don't see the avenue that, Porter takes to get this win.
Yeah, I mean, really the only way I could see Porter winning this fight is if this fight is kind of dreadful. I mean, he would have to really figure out how to cut Spence's offense down. Maybe a lot of clutching, a lot of holding. Just. So I don't know. I mean, it would have to be for me, like, the more of an action fight this is, the worse it's going to be for Porter. It has to be a fight where Porter is landing 12 punches around and he's able to hold Spence to under 10 punches around. And I just don't really see that happening. And yeah, like, I feel like Spence is not going to have to worry too much about his defense. He'll let the offense be his defense, like against Mikey. I just don't really think Porter has the tools to slow him down. I just don't. I'm sorry if you're out there and you like Porter. He seems like a nice guy, but I just don't. I don't see Spence having any issues here. I don't think he loses a round. I don't. I really don't.
I'll give Porter a few rounds. I'm thinking it goes to like a 118, 110 Spence, maybe 117, 111. I think Porter can take a few if Spence takes a round off, or I think some rounds, like you stated, Porter can make it ugly where it's going to be a mauling round where, it's tough to see who takes it because it's a lot of holding, a lot of grabbing. It almost looks like John Ruiz against Henry Akawande if they ever fought. Something like that where it's more of a wrestling match. But
man,
the only way I can really honestly see Porter winning is, well, two ways. A, Spence was nothing but hype, which I don't really see because if you look at it, I thought Garcia, he showed he could box. Though Ocampo was, it's Ocampo and Peterson's Peterson, but I thought Spence showed a lot in the Brook fight where he was able to, and mind you, Brook beat Porter. He was able to stand up to Brook. I know people say about the eye and things like that, but still, I thought that was still a good version of Brook, even though obviously at the end of the fight the eye is what ended it. But it's not like his eye just fell out in between rounds. Spence was continuously hitting and pressuring Brook, and that's what essentially broke him down. So I just don't see what Porter does unless Spence is hype, which I don't think. Looking at the Brook fight, and also I thought Van Heerden was a good win. Yeah. Many people unfamiliar with Van Heerden, but I don't think he's really too bad. I thought that was a good win. You throw those two in, I just don't see it for Porter. Unless somehow it ends in the 5th round on an accidental headbutt, and he just so happened to win 3 rounds because Spence started slow, something like that, like a really mysterious Spence injury. He breaks his wrist on the something abnormal. But I just can't see Porter winning the fight legit straight out.
No, I can't either, man. I think, I'm happy to see Spence get a chance to unify the titles, but I think this could really be like a breakout performance for him. Like, if he could stop Porter here, like in mid rounds, and just, it could really be that fight that puts him, hopefully could put him into the mainstream a little bit more. Like, I really think the guy has the talent level to be the face of PBC, in a division that historically, how many welterweights have been the top guys in boxing? Think about it. It seems natural. So I think this is the start of something really, really big for Errol Spence. You look at that, PBC really runs welterweight. There's so many names out there that they could feed to him after this fight. I guess I'm looking ahead a little bit, but I think Manny's ripe for the picking at some point. Danny Garcia is going to be ripe for the picking. There's lots of names coming up too. So I think you can keep Spence. This is really could be the start of something pretty big here, where you could see him. Yeah, I don't think he'll ever fight Bud, but I think there's some big names for him to fight, and he could definitely be the guy that that becomes the big name that Fox is going to want to pay a lot of money to put on TV.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see that happening. I don't see him losing, and if he can get that stoppage, which I think has a shot, I would say eight on. Whereas if he's continually breaking Porter down, Porter has to get in close, has to make it a mugging. If he can just keep catching Porter coming in and hit him to the body, Spence is a great body puncher. You could definitely maybe see a stoppage. Betting wise, you're looking at Spence by decision is -155, and Spence by stoppage at any point is +255. So the betting eyes are thinking this is going to be a Spence decision, but even their odds on decision to knockout are pretty close.
Yeah, I think the value. I think a Spence going for the Spence knockout, trying to get a little bit of money there. Not a bad bet. I just don't, over under. That's always scary. So I would just say just take the straight Spence KO. That'd be my my prediction.
Yeah. I don't think, especially if you got 7-12 and got like a lump round like that, because I think anything less than that would be just amazing. If Spence just blew the doors off Ford in 3 rounds, my jaw would drop. But that's 7-12 to even up those numbers. I don't know what they are. I don't have in front of me, but if it's +255 by knock at any point, you got to figure 7-12 is obviously going to be a little bit bigger than that. And if you feel like Spence towards the end of the fight, you could look at that 10-12 for Spence, and that has a really nice return to it. If you think Porter can just make it a certain amount of rounds, fades late, and Spence gets him out of there, that could be an interesting prop bet to take.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, man. I think this is just like a fight where, you can definitely make a little bit of money on this fight. You got to be a little bit brave, but Spence late round by stoppage. I don't think that's a terrible bet at all. I would say go for that. That's my feeling on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, enhance the fighting experience, if you're buying the pay-per-view, maybe you want to make something out of it. Mm-hmm. It's really not a bad bet because I think Spence kind of knows after the Garcia flack he took about not stopping the guy from 135, who really is 140 because he had a belt at 140, but not stopping the smaller Garcia. This seems like a fight where, this is a statement to make. And Porter has been hurt before. Kell Brook hurt him with a couple of shots in that fight, I remember. Broner dropped him in the 12th round, had him hurt. So Porter has a really good chin, but it's not that, invincible. He has been hurt before. He has been dropped.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't see why Errol Spence can't get to him. I really can't. I think it's like I said, I think this is the fight for him to break out, to become the big name. It's time for him to do that. It's time for him to fulfill the destiny.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's a bad card, like we said in the beginning.
No.
$75 for the pay-per-views, a little bit maybe steep for some people, but
yeah.
Dave and Buster's, Twin Peaks, they're both showing it. Some movie theaters are showing it, and then you
go to your most depressing Hooters in your town. I mean, they're going to be showing it. I say don't go get the wings and sit at the end of the bar. You'll get incredible value at your Hooters.
There you go. You win all night right there with that.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Hooters, Route 1 in Saugus, Massachusetts.
There you go. A little Hooters shout out. Never heard anybody. But we'll be back next week. We're going to cover probably, I guess, the after effects of this fight card. We're going to go into the G3 Derevchenko fight a little bit. And we should have another guest co-host on, and Tim will probably make his return as well. But again, you can go plug, well, you don't really have to plug Boxrec. Everyone knows what Boxrec is.
yeah, I would hope so. Jeez Louise.
You'd figure, back in 2003 when I first found it, then it was like, oh my God, when I showed people. But now it's like, I don't think I've met anyone that remotely semi-follows boxing and they don't know what Boxrec is. But nonetheless, Boxrec, great site, records, everything else. And, just give a quick plug to your show and anything else you may have going on in your life.
On Professional Boxing Podcast. Go check that out. Just Google it. You'll find it. You can also search for it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever they have podcasts. On Professional Boxing Podcast every single week from my one-bedroom apartment with my cat co-host. We try to bring in guests every single week, do a little bit of a different show than other people. I like to talk to people in the boxing industry, and writers, and fans, and get their perspectives. So try and be a little bit different. Follow me on Twitter at Boxrec Grey, BoxrecGrey. Try and keep the tweets funny. Do that every single Saturday night. Follow along with the fights. Yeah, man, that's those are the two big things I got going on right now. Just keeping the podcast consistent and doing the Twitter account. So thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it. Love the chance to talk.
Yeah, and Phil, thanks for being the guest, especially with Tim not being here. It would have seemed odd for me talking by myself. So
Well, I'm glad that I could. As somebody who's done a lot of solo shows, it does not hurt to have the guest. Glad I could, carry the slack a little bit this week. Hopefully, Tim will be out of work and you guys can do the show as normal.
yeah, so we're on a different schedule for the people that normally listen. We should have the Derchenko G3, and then after that point, we're going to do it every other week where we're going to kind of bulk topics. For example, after that would be the 16th, where we're kind of going to the Better Beef Nail fight and the Progress Taylor fight the week after. So we're just trying to kind of cram more into one show so we kind of keep it fresh and lively. So
Hell yeah! And October is going to be a really good month of boxing, so you guys are going to have plenty to talk about.
yeah, because August was such a dead month. I mean, you had the Kovalev and you had the Lomachenko fight cards, but looking back at it, which was only not even a month ago, what else do you remember from August?
I remember a lot of drinking. I don't remember a whole lot of boxing, my man. It was a long month. I mean, when you work in business, everybody in Europe goes on vacation, so it's just like there's nothing. It just feels like a dead month in general. It's not just boxing, man. It just feels like the world just takes a vacation. So yeah, I remember drinking a lot of White Claws with my buds, but not a whole lot of good boxing. So glad you picked that back up in the fall.
All right, everyone. Until next time, take care. See you soon.
Take care.